Zachary Bowen, 28, sat at the bar of the Omni Royal Hotel in New Orleans. He drank his last drink and plunged into deep thinking about his life. He felt that he failed in the way that he'd handled things. There were two failures in particular that caused him the most grief. The first was that he had murdered his girlfriend. The second was that he had no guilt for doing so. It was time. He stepped over to the outdoor terrace and glanced down. So in today's video we are going to tell you the details of this horrific crime. But before, if you love to know the small details of a crime in a quick video, then please subscribe our channel and also press the bell icon. Zachary Bowen, according to many who knew him, was just an ordinary guy who never drew attention to himself. That is until he joined the military. Bowen married at the age of 18, and he and his wife had 2 children. He chose to join the army in order to better support his small family. During his missions in Kosovo and Iraq, Bowen quickly advanced through the ranks, eventually becoming a sergeant. Those who served with him noticed a shift in his personality about this period. He was growing increasingly dissatisfied and definitely desired to return home. Bowen was eventually granted a general discharge and was permitted to return home. Bowen was bitter about his military experience and angry with himself. As a soldier, he believed he had failed. He struggled to transition to civilian life, like many other veterans. He and his wife separated soon afterward his return. Bowen thought it was past time for him to stand up again. He got a job bartending. The French Quarter is full of temptations, even those that dull terrible emotions. Women, alcohol, and drugs are readily available. Addie Hall, who worked at the same business as Bowen, piqued his interest. Hall shared his drinking habits, and the two quickly moved into a Crescent City apartment together. Bowen needed attention. He needed a woman in his life to take his mind off his loneliness. Bowen, on the other hand, was unaware that he had entered a toxic relationship that would spiral downward and destroy both of them. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast with fury. Louisiana residents were very heavily damaged. The majority of those who were able to did so evacuated their homes. Bowen and Hall opted to stay in their flat and ride out the storm. Being stranded at home provided the ideal excuse to engage in binge drinking and cocaine use. Because they were inebriated for the majority of the time, they were unconcerned about the gravity of the situation. Hall even stood in front of her window, flashing her breasts at rescue workers who were attempting to save others from their flooded homes. Bowen and Hall, like many others in the region, were affected by the storm's aftermath, which included widespread power outages and a scarcity of safe drinking water. This was just another excuse for them to keep partying. They continued to drink and use drugs, which only added to the tension between them. Hall had a nasty temper when she drank, and she took out her rage on Bowen. When conditions in the Crescent City began to normalize, a new hurricane hit. The relationship in which Bowen and Hall found themselves was that new hurricane. This hurricane, unlike Hurricane Katrina, would be devastating for both of them. Bowen's depression was approaching a new level. His friendship with Hall was making his military service seem more bearable. Hall was always venting her rage at him. He was the object of her emotional and physical abuse. They were constantly going at it with each other. On the morning of October 5, Bowen woke up with a pounding headache. He entered the restroom and examined himself in the mirror. He saw the face of a man who was engulfed in darkness. He'd failed as a spouse and parent. He'd failed the military because he couldn't handle the pressure. And now his new girlfriend was constantly unhappy with him. What had he done with his life? His despair quickly gave way to a fit of wrath. He felt like Hall had pulled the rug out from under him exactly when he needed someone to care about him. Instead, he felt as if she was pursuing him. Bowen left the bathroom and grabbed his belt. He strolled along the corridor until he came to the bathroom. Hall was in the bathtub. Bowen wrapped the belt around her neck and choked her in one swift motion. The more she fought, the tighter he tightened the belt. He kept tightening the belt till she couldn't move her body anymore. Killing her had not satisfied his anger. His rage was still burning. He walked to the garage and returned with an electric saw to the restroom. He decapitated and dismembered Hall's body after draining the tub water. He snatched her head and carried it into the kitchen, where he placed it in a pot on top of the stove. He then went back to the restroom to get her hands and feet. Bowen then placed her arms and legs on a turkey basting tray and placed them in a second pot. He seasoned the body parts before placing them in the oven, which he then turned on. As for her torso, he put that in a large plastic bag and stored it in the refrigerator. Bowen's rage and deluded reasoning that had caused him to brutally murder his lover were now focused completely on himself. He tried to divert himself from his self-loathing at first by binge drinking, using drugs, and frequenting strip joints. However, the power of these distractions was short-lived. His demons resurfaced with a vengeance. Bowen took one of the cigarettes from the pack and lighted it. He then proceeded to press the lit cigarette against his arm. His purgatory was the scorching sensation. He took the cigarette and continued to burn himself. Each burn represented 1 year of his life, a total of 28 burns. Bowen grabbed some paper and a pen and wrote a note. He explained what he had done to Hall and where her body parts could be found. He shared his feelings of failure as a husband, father, and as a boyfriend to Hall. When he was done, he drove to the Omni Royal Hotel and had his last drink. When he had finished it, he walked calmly toward the outside terrace. He looked down at the roof of the parking garage far below. Bowen jumped and landed on the roof of the parking garage, killing himself instantly. We sincerely hope that you have liked the video and also subscribed the channel. Comment down below if you want us to work on a particular case.